Welcome back to the GSMC College Football Podcast. Just previewed a little bit of the Washington Huskies, their upcoming season. We're going to stick on the West Coast and talk a little bit about the number one seed in this last season's college football playoff, the Oregon Ducks. So obviously Oregon had a really strong season last year, went undefeated throughout the regular season, won the Big Ten championship in their first year in the Big Ten, beat Penn State in that game. Kind of had a rough draw in the college football playoff, had a bye week 1, then had to play the winner of Ohio State-Tennessee, which was Ohio State. Weren't able to beat Ohio State for a second time in the season, but this is going to be a team, again, that I think is going to be a college football playoff contender. They're not going to have as much talent returning, but still a lot of guys on this roster that I think are going to be really solid. This is going to be another really strong Ducks team. So quarterback-wise, it's going to be Dante Moore's time now. So Dante Moore was a 5-star recruit, had a really interesting high school kind of recruiting situation, committed to about 3 different schools, but that's besides the point, though. Went to UCLA as a freshman, played a good chunk of their games, started, I believe, 5 or 6 games as a true freshman. Then he decided to transfer to Oregon last season. So they brought in Dante Moore as well as Dillon Gabriel. Dante Moore sat behind Dillon Gabriel for a year. He should be the guy that's going to take over. In theory, Austin Novosad, he's still in the race at quarterback. It's still technically an open competition, and Eugene, I think that's really more so in name than anything else. I think this is Dante Moore's team. He's going to take over. I'm really interested to see his development and how much sitting out last season, how much that helped him, if it did help at all, because this was a guy that I think was probably one of the top 2 or 3 most talented quarterbacks in that 2023 class, which obviously was a really strong recruiting class. But I'm really curious to see his development, what he can do at Oregon. I think there's a lot more talent around him than at UCLA, and I think you could have a really strong season from Dante Moore. Running back-wise, he is going to lose their leading rusher from last year, Jordan James. Jordan James had over 1,200 rushing yards, but they bring in Makhi Hughes from Tulane. This kid should be their running back 1, has over 2,800 rushing yards from the past 2 seasons, had about 1,400 last year, had about 1,350 in 2023, so proven production. He also caught 19 passes last year, kind of highlighting a little bit of his dual threat ability. Noah Whittington, he's returning, should be the running back 2 again. Had 540 rushing yards last season, so this can be a kid that he should step back into that role. This is still going to be a really strong running back room for Oregon. I'm excited to watch Makhi Hughes this year. Just that jump up in quality of teammates, I think that's going to be the biggest thing for Makhi Hughes, getting that Oregon offensive line in front of him compared to some of the guys at Tulane. Not that Tulane is a bad program whatsoever, but some of the guys up front at Oregon probably a little bit stronger than some of the guys at Tulane. I'm curious to see what he does behind that offensive line at Oregon. I think that could be really fun to watch. Pass catching wise, they're going to lose a decent chunk here. So they're losing Tez Johnson, who heart and soul of that wide receiver room past couple years. Bo Nix's adopted brother, which I never knew about until I was watching the Combine. They were like, oh yeah, Tez Johnson, brother of Bo Nix. And I was like, what? That's crazy. But interesting story there. Tez Johnson, though, going to be a really good player in the NFL, I think. Really strong career at Oregon. They're going to lose him. They're going to lose their tight end, Terrence Ferguson. Also going to lose wide receiver Trayshawn Holder. So they're losing a lot of production here in the wide receiver tight end room. Evan Stewart, he's going to return. Former 5-star, transferred to Oregon last season after being at Texas A&M. Had a really strong season. I believe was their second leading pass catcher last year. He's going to be the number one wideout, take over that X role. Z on the other outside receiver is going to be kind of interesting. It's really going to be a toss-up between Jeremiah McClellan, Malik Benson. Both of them are kind of in contention. I think either one could play. They're both going to play. Either one could start, though. And it looks like the slot is going to be true freshman, number one wide receiver in the country, Dakorien Moore. I'm really excited to see him play in college. This kid is his top 5 overall prospect, was the number one receiver in the class, and a really strong receiver recruiting class. I'm excited to see him, how he plays with Evan Stewart. Going to be a really exciting player to watch. I think he could have a similar impact at Oregon that Jeremiah Smith did for Ohio State last season. I don't know if it'll be that much of an impact, but Dakorien Moore, I think he's still going to have a really, really strong freshman season for Oregon. He's going to play a lot. I don't know if he's a 1,000-yard receiver guy as a freshman, but I think he's probably over 500 receiving yards this upcoming season. Don't quote me on that, though. I could be way off there. Tight end room, a little more in flux. They have 2 guys. Kenyon Sadiq, probably going to be the starter there. Jamari Johnson, he should also mix in. That might be a place where they add somebody in the portal, just because they don't have a ton of depth at tight end right now. That's going to be a room that they might look at to try to add to. In the trenches, offensive line, going to be kind of interesting. They really have 3 set starters pretty much. Left tackle, it looks like it's going to be Nevada transfer Isaiah World. Played all games last year at left tackle for Nevada. Had a really strong season, all-conference selection. Left guard, looks like it's going to be USC transfer Emmanuel Pregnon. He started all 13 games for them last year. And then at center, it's going to be Yapani Laulu. Normally, I'm really good with those names. They have been giving me issues the past week or so. Yapani Laulu, he's going to start at center. Started all 2024 last year. Will be, again, the starter at center. Right tackle, right guard, they're a little bit more of a toss-up. There's going to be a couple different guys. Right tackle's really going to be between Alex Harkey, Janoris Wilson. Those are the 2 guys there. Defensive line, Mateo Uagalele, that's the headliner. DJ's younger brother. I already talked about him in my top 5 edge rushers to look for, but that's going to be a kid that I think he's going to be the anchor of this Oregon defense. He's going to be a really strong player. Had about 10 sacks last year. I could see a similar performance, if not better, this upcoming season. A couple different guys then. Bear Alexander is probably going to be their nose tackle. Amori Washington, Aiden Breland, they're probably going to mix in at that other D-tackle spot. Linebacker-wise, they got Bryce Boettcher's back and got another year of eligibility from the NCAA. This is huge for Oregon. Last year, played in all 14 games. He had 13 starts at inside linebacker. Won the Burlsworth Award, which is most outstanding player who began their career as a walk-on. I thought that was kind of cool. I never heard of that award before, but he was the first Oregon guy to win it too. But 94 tackles last season, 50 solo tackles, 8 tackles for loss, 2 sacks. Really graded strongly by Pro Football Focus across the board. I think he was 4th in overall grade in linebackers across the country. That's going to be the main guy there to look for. Secondary is going to be kind of an interesting spot for them. Brandon Johnson, he's leaving at safety. There's going to be a couple different guys that are kind of in the mix there. Dalen Austin, as well as Jalen Kennedy he was a transfer in from Ole Miss. And then Trey McNutt, he's a 5-star coming in, I believe from Ohio actually, but he's a safety to watch at Oregon there, could mix in that role. Schedule-wise, I think Oregon actually has a pretty solid schedule for this upcoming season to make another run. They have Oklahoma State at home in the first week or two of the season. I thought that was kind of an interesting matchup. They should be fine against Oklahoma State, but I just thought it was interesting more so that they're playing Oklahoma State. The big matchup I'm looking at for Oregon this season is going to be September 27th. They have to go to Happy Valley, play at Penn State in a rematch of that Big Ten championship game. They kind of dominated that game in the first half. Penn State came back, made it pretty close, but I'm really curious to see how they'll fare having to go on the road, play in one of the toughest stadiums in the country. How will they react, especially, well, at least in September, the weather shouldn't be too bad in Pennsylvania, but you never know. Could be rain, snow, sleet, anything, honestly, but that's going to be the big matchup I'm looking at for Oregon this season. They're also going to play Indiana at home. I'm not too concerned about that game for them, but it could be a trap kind of game, especially that's coming 2 weeks after Penn State. Just kind of depends on what happens with that game. Then their only other matchup where I was like, they might kind of have issues is they have to play at Iowa November 8th. I don't know how Iowa's going to be this year, but I think Iowa's just kind of a tough place to play traditionally. And they're a really interesting opponent, especially for Oregon, kind of stylistic clashes. I think that's going to be a game where I don't think Oregon loses, but I think they may have struggles in that particular matchup this upcoming season. However, I think probably the floor for this team is 9-3. They don't have to play Ohio State, don't have to play Michigan. Penn State's really going to be their toughest matchup here. I think this is a 9-3 team at minimum. Definitely going to be in contention again this upcoming season. Going to be a team we're going to have to look out for the college football playoff for a potential national championship. So we're going to take another short break here on the GSMC Football Podcast, and we will be back right away. When we come back, we're going to talk a little bit about some of the games for this upcoming season across the country that I'm kind of keeping an eye on, games I think could be fun to look at. So we're going to do that when we come back, but we will see you shortly on the GSMC College Football Podcast.